Hello, art lovers. I'm Juan Miguel Garcia, and here we are in another segment of Meet Our Local Heroes, our local art heroes. And with us today is someone who has been incredibly instrumental in this art movement that's happening. Dr. Aissa Huerta.
You're so crazy. Not a doctor.
Full disclosure, not a doctor, but hi, Aissa.
Hi, Juan Miguel. How are you today?
Good. Do you know the meaning of the word Philharmonic?
I don't.
See, I love that in the introduction we were able to sneak like 2 inside jokes already. No, but serious business, because art is serious. Hi. So, I seriously mean it. You have been very instrumental in this art movement that's happening, and a lot of people see you like at all of these art events and see you at openings. But who is Aissa Huerta?
What?
Yes. So what is it that you do?
Everything. No, I feel like there is not one thing that I do, but art is the bottom line of what I do, and I try to approach it from every angle.
Right. So you're an artist. You're the art director of Linea Studio, which it's one of like the common thread that I've discovered doing these interviews is that a lot of people attributed La Linea as that space that brought us together. Was that always the dream?
That was the dream. I think there was like 12 years of birthdays that like every birthday wish was like a nonprofit art space. And I wanted that in the community, and I wanted there to be everything that I wanted growing up here. Not that there wasn't art, but it wasn't as easily accessible. It wasn't as prevalent. And I wanted to create a space where creative people could come together and create new ideas and share ideas. And that I think was lacking somewhat. But yeah, that was the dream, and we're living it.
How does it feel to actually like, it's kind of like that meme that it's like, do you realize that you're living at least one of your dreams?
It feels surreal. I think there's moments where I forget to be in gratitude of how much has happened and how far we come. You get stuck in like the little minutia details of what's happening today, or what's the next problem to solve, or the next event to plan for. But sometimes it's really cool to just stop at an opening or an event and look around and be like, wow, this is here, this is real, and it's growing, and people are happy to participate in its growth, which that's more than we could have dreamt of for.
So I know you've told this story many times, but if you could tell us how La Linea came to be, which came from a very unlikely and kind of depressing starting point, which was the concertina wire.
Well, the art space was a dream, but the concertina wire was a different reality that I don't think we anticipated coming. And it was like waking up one day and being in a war zone. We didn't know the army vehicles were coming. We didn't know the National Guard was coming. We didn't know the concertina wire was coming. And
for context, this is like everything that was happening here at the border, like the Nogales border with Mexico, and that they put up concertina wire on the wall.
Mm-hmm. And that was the effort was to be able to corral the immigrants that were coming. And it wasn't that situation, right? There were families that were playing Uno on the sidewalk. We weren't expecting a tidal wave of people. So the preparation for the safety was really kind of like a punishment. It made downtown look like a prison. It made Nogales look like a police state. It made, I think, a lot of people question, like, what is happening? Is this not the safe place I believed it to be?
Right.
So I think nationally, we have that unfortunate reputation of like the danger of the border, but so much of that is the physical line that I think growing up here, you forget that so many things happen here. But over time, it's been really cool to see how the community develops and responds to the space and the change that it did end up creating. But to the to the beginning of the story, the concertina wire showed up, and we wanted to put an art piece in conversation with the wire for community members, for people that were traveling to see the border. It was embarrassing to think that people were coming from across the nation to look at the wall. And
yeah,
so,
it was almost like our version of dark tourism, and I mean, just to have that morbid curiosity of like, oh, what is this war zone?
and well, so much of the danger and the atrocities are of the physical line. Like, yes, there's a lot of things that happen on that line, but I don't think those crimes or those things speak to the communities that live on both sides of that line. And I think because Nogales is ambos Nogales and they're sister cities, that we have communities here on this border that don't exist in other directions,
Right.
you know. But we wanted to sorry, we keep getting lost.
Long story short.
Long story short, we really wanted to put the art piece. And I had seen a post that Evan had put from
Dr. Evan Pablo
Dr.
Corey.
Evan Pablo. He is a doctor.
He is a doctor.
Dr. Evan Pablo Corey posted from the window of Corey's, and it was of the Border Patrol and the National Guard erecting the concertina wire, and his emotional reaction was of disappointment, was of, you know, pain. It's more serious, I think, than being embarrassed, because like, oh, my wire, like it became like an identity crisis, I think, for a lot of people, of like, wait a minute, where am I? What's happening?
And it's really interesting because I guess at the time I was working in another clothing store that it's like further in, like into the US, like further from the border. And it seemed that the reaction from people there was just like complete and total like acceptance of it, of like, oh, like it's there. It's like whatever. This is who we are now. But I guess sort of witnessing it firsthand, it can be, like as you said, an identity crisis, because you have this view of just constant blockage, like, you know, again, the wire, all of the cars, all of this army-looking things going up. It can be very invasive.
And I think, like you mentioned identity, I will touch on that again later, I think. But I think for, like, in terms of growing up here, you know, when I was in middle school, it was you needed a school ID, and then it was you needed a state ID, and then you needed a birth certificate, and then a passport. And this didn't happen overnight. I think it happened slowly over time, that people have been able to acclimate to it. And I think that's why a lot of people's responses was just like, that's how it is, that's what's happening, that things happen to us. But I wanted to get away from that position of things happening to us and like, what can we create? What can we make happen? So Evan's post really resonated with me, and I didn't know Evan very well at the time. I sent him a message on Facebook asking if we could go to Starbucks to meet, to talk about it. And he was really willing, and we had a great conversation. But at the end of the day, you know, the bridal store is not the best place for this somewhat political art piece, people's most special day. That's not what they want to think of.
Do you remember what the art piece was?
It was going to be like a silhouetted image of boots crushing things. It was going to be like a series of things that the boots were crushing, and then eventually the boots were going to crush the concertina wire.
Which, by the way, if I can make a small parenthesis, that is what I love about your art, and I don't think, and this is, again, this is why this is so important, because not a lot of people know the type of art that you do, but it's always something that it's not just quote unquote pretty. Like, it's very, like, you have ideas that are, for pieces that are thought-provoking and that are going to make you stop and do a double take, and, you know, like, that is an example of of many of just the ideas that I've heard you spewed over over the years of that. Again, they're pieces that make you think, that make you really analyze, like almost holding a reflection up to society.
And I think all art does that in some way. I think some people are just more concerted about the effort to make sure that it says what they want it to say. And not that everything has to be, an epic poem or an epic intention, but I think it does have to say something. And we've created a community where we allow people to create art that says something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a win for us.
One of my favorite ideas of yours is the idea of creating very detailed, intricate pieces, but then having some form of obstacle to them, that you can't see them.
And a lot of that is based on my experience of watching families touch each other's hands through the border, of them showing their newborn babies, and how beautiful these connections are, but how they're obstructed physically, how you can only see little tiny dots of somebody's face, and how beautiful it is when you can see the whole picture, but how unnecessary it is too, how we can have that connection, how we can see that beauty without an obstruction.
Right. But and see, like, that's what I mean. It's like such a simple concept, but I didn't know this about that was sort of the inspiration, the idea that there is this wall between us. Do you find that living where we do here in like Nogales and this border town, does that influence a lot of your art?
It does. It actually is kind of what turned me to art, actually. I was always interested in healing. I was pre-med, I studied medicine, I studied psychology. I wanted to get to...
So you could be Dr. Huerta.
But no, didn't make it there.
But no,
I changed my mind. It ended up being, when I was younger, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And that seemed like a really direct way to heal people, to heal children before they become adults with problems. But the more that I studied and the more that I went into it, the more I discovered that healing is not linear. And sometimes we're not as
we
healed
discovered that
as we thought. But that art, that there is something in it, in the nonverbal connection, in the sensory connection, in whatever happens between mind and the creation of art in that process, is very healing in ways that I don't think medication always is, or therapy isn't always, depending on where you are and how you're able to receive it. But yeah, that's what turned me to art, and I realized that art could be utilized in a whole tons of different ways. You could do one-on-one art with somebody, you could do sensory art therapy, you could do an exhibition, or you could do a mural, or you could do a song or a dance or play. There's so many things that you could create to help process all of these emotions that psychology and medicine and all of these other industries are trying really hard to solve, to give people this feeling of wholeness.
Right. Yeah, it's another alternative. Just like some people prefer homeopathic medicine, and other people are like, well, I think your gay friend should mind his own business. No, homeopathic medicine, being the alternative to like Western medicine. But yeah, and I think art has. I think now more than ever, it's been given sort of like that recognition that it is very therapeutic, that it can sort of help process complex feelings, and it has a language all of its own, which it's universal.
And I think that's why having a space at the border was important to me. I think leaving Nogales, and I went to school in New York, and it was crazy to me how many highly educated people didn't know where the border was, if there was a border, what it meant to be a border town, if I was an international student or not. And then I realized, like, to a lot of the world, they're not thinking about this area. And for a lot of us here, we're only thinking as far as this area. And that's where the identity piece, I think, comes in, because people who grow up binational, right, you don't get to claim any one area, right? You could go farther south into Mexico and not be accepted because you're not Mexican enough, or you could go farther north into the United States and not be accepted because you're not American enough.
That's what Selena's dad said.
And
you have to know both Christina and Oprah.
You have to do both. And I think there's such a complex identity of this area. It's such a melting pot, salad bowl of people and acapirotada, if you will, of different things that are happening here. You know, we have produce, we have law enforcement, we have education, we have all sorts of things that people, and not that we're unique in that we have those things, but we're unique in the way that we relate to each other. I don't know that there are as many small communities like this where there's not so much childcare, but you can depend on your family members and your close friends, and you've created a community around certain things. But leaving here, I think, is kind of shocking when this is all you've ever known.
Right.
And it's important, I think, to use art and to use culture and education and information to instill pride, to instill knowledge, to instill ownership of this place. So people who live here can call it theirs, but also can share it with other people. They can defend it. And I think that the art movement is facilitating that.
Right. And how poetic is it that Morley, the street that was once known for all of its bustling activity and commerce and stores, is now the center of this arts district, and that more and more art organizations are popping up everywhere on Morley.
And I think that was part of the origin story, because around the time with the concertina wire, they also closed the border. Then they later closed it for COVID. But this downtown area that I grew up as the center, the bustling part of town, was gone. There was 25, I think, empty buildings in the first 2 blocks, just indefinitely closed. Yeah. And it was sad, and we had high school students say that they had never been downtown because they didn't have a reason. They didn't have a reason to go, which is heartbreaking. But because of that, because there was so many vacancies, when Evan let us know that the bridal store was not the best place, Niels Ehrman had the opportunity to really show us a lot of buildings here downtown of look at this one, look at what this one could be. This building was an option.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit, before we went live, that we're filming at the We Love Nogales Studios, which is that building next to the héroes building, and that has that mural of the Bobcat. And this could have been La Linea.
Mm-hmm. But ironically, it has a mural on the front, which was another part of the movement of having La Linea, was to create public art, to create creative spaces, to fix, a little bit of the economy downtown, because there was no reason to come here. Now we have tons of reasons. The stores are booming again. Organizations like héroes are starting to move down here and create real opportunities for youth and community members. And I think it's the trickle effect of, we started something and people responded to it, and I think it showed that it was possible, and that's inspiring. And together, I think, step by step, the downtown has bloomed a little bit, and it's early, but I think there's a lot of hope for and potential for the things that we could create here.
Well, and you know, to sort of bring it back about how healing is not linear, I think downtown has been through a lot. You know, she was looking rough at one moment, and now there's a lot of healing that she's doing, and there's a lot of ups and downs, but this art movement certainly has helped.
I think so.
With the healing process.
And I think it helped identify kind of some structural issues that we have downtown, like the ADA compliance issue or the internet issue. You know, now that people are spending time here, we can identify these things and fix them.
Right. So, again, going back to the birth of La Linea.
We're gonna get through this story.
We're gonna get through the story. No. I think we got it. I think we got through it. But I just think it's sort of an amazing story because it was all done through volunteers. I've seen pictures of just mopping the non-existent floor, and I've seen like earlier versions of what La Linea looked like. And it's just amazing to see how far it's come.
It is. It's crazy.
And so what was it like being in those early moments and, you know, like just knowing that you were creating this space, but at the same time not knowing what it's become?
I mean, it was passion. It was a passion project. It came from a place of love, definitely. But it was an uphill battle, for sure. Neil Zerman gave us a wonderful gift of allowing us to use the studio space for a very nominal rent. And that created an opportunity. And he had a passion and a faith in us and the project that I'm not sure we had. Like he saw the potential and we saw the potential, but also the expense and the time and the logistics and the how, right?
Because more often than not, we do what we do because of like the love of art, and rarely, you know, like we dream big, but it's like, where do we get the resources to make those dreams come to fruition?
And I think that's where, you know, the core heart of community and La Linea really stepped up. It was a lot of people that were like, this is a cool idea. I want to see this. I want to see this happen. I want to work with you to make it happen. And it wouldn't have been possible without that group of people. It wouldn't have been possible to tear down the walls and take out the carpet and grind the mastic and all of that. Definitely. But past the renovations, I think that there's a community that La Linea has that wouldn't have been possible without those people and without that kind of common suffering of like, we're creating this thing. And it was exciting to see it come to fruition. When we opened, it was kind of like, what if nobody comes? What if nobody comes to my party? And, you know, it was possible, but people showed up in droves, and that was November of 2019. So COVID came right after that. And
that relentless bee.
Well, it was mind-boggling because the studio space was based on people's personal contributions, gathering, events, and donations. So when we weren't allowed to gather, how were we going to sustain it? You know, it was very, very kind of up in the air system, but we did get a lot of donations. Paula Whitner's first exhibition was a major role in being able to keep our doors open. We sold craft kits for people to be able to take home and do crafts with their families.
Ironically, like, because I know that Evan would go into the space and just, you know, spend his self-imposed isolation at La Linea, and being surrounded by Paula Whitner's paintings. That was sort of the inspiration for the Whitner Museum.
It was, because they were there, I think, 13 months, admittedly. They were hanging, and we got really attached to these characters, to these people, to this fantasy world that Paula's created. And she has so much work, and it's such good quality work. Every piece is its own story, it's its own universe, and we wanted to keep it and have it be a fixture. But the Whitner Museum also solved a lot of other issues in that La Linea isn't really set up super well for performances. So the Whitner has a stage, it's great for performing arts, and I think the balance kind of keeps
it
us
really
going.
is all
It's
about
all
the
about
balance.
the balance.
By the way, we should have like a counter or something that just like numbers the like every time we have an inside joke.
It really is all
Thank you
about
for
the
letting us
balance.
be here. No, but it's really amazing, and you know, my own personal story with La Linea, and I, you know, now this is kind of like a full circle moment, because I wander into La Linea one day thinking like, oh, it's open studio night, maybe it's over. And it was, but but you were there cleaning up, and we got to talk, and we just instantly like clicked and connected. But you were and I know I've said this story many times, but you asked me like, oh, like are you an artist? And at the time I was still, you know, it was something that I picked up during the lockdown, and well, not really. Like I do it as a hobby. And you said, no, you are, own it.
Aren't you glad you said yes?
and I think, you know, now it's sort of, I think that is the point that I always attribute to like the beginning of this art journey. And so it's kind of like your efforts and your dreams and everything that you hoped it would be, I think, you know, I sort of got to experience it firsthand, because it was sort of being surrounded by everyone at La Linea, and the encouragement and the nurturing of the stuff that I was doing at the time with my paintings. It kind of did give me the confidence to say like, yeah, I'm an artist. And like Faith Posey says, it's like I didn't decide to become an artist, I just realized that I was one.
And I think that's true. I think that's true for so many people. And I think, you know, we put calls to artists, and a lot of people are like, ooh, it's not me. I'm not an artist.
Yeah.
This is not what's on my tax return, or however you want to evaluate your state of art. But at the end of the day, there's a little bit in everyone. And I think that if you're passionate about it and you're dedicated to it, that you can really create something out of it. And I think that your story is a really cool story to be privy to as you exhibit across Arizona and internationally. That's all it takes at some point, is a commitment to creation.
It's like Lady Gaga once said, there could be 100 people in a room, and all it takes is one to believe in you. And I think you have been that person for many people.
Aww.
I'm going for the Barbara Walters moment.
Stop it.
No, okay. So, what do you see for the future of La Linea? Well, first of all, was the name always La Linea?
It wasn't. It wasn't La Linea. I think it started as Revival, because we wanted to create a revival downtown, a renaissance, if you will. But it doesn't.
I'm glad you didn't go
It
with
doesn't
that one.
translate.
Yeah.
And I
Also, after a couple of seasons, it's like, well, she's revived. Like, what? It's kind of like New Girl, you know, like after 5 seasons, like she's not new anymore.
and that right. It just didn't feel appropriate, like as the pandemic happened and as we were trying to figure out what the relationship with the community was going to be. The name that didn't translate seemed like a very poor choice at that time. And my whole life has been like, oh, I'm going to the otro lado, I'm going to La Linea, like having it.
¿En dónde te veo? En la línea.
We've had some miscommunications
Oh
actually.
my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Where I am
remember,
at La
was
Linea
there.
studio,
Yeah.
and somebody is at La Linea waiting for me.
I was there when that happened, and it's like they were picking you up, and it's like, where are you? I'm at La Linea. Yeah, I'm at La Linea too. Where are you? You were at like La Linea Art Studio, the place. This other person was like at the border.
But the identity is so fused, and we wanted it to be, because it's like you can see the border, you can touch the border, and it's such an integral part of our identity and our existence here in Nogales that we wanted to pay homage to it. But also, a line is the first element of a drawing.
Girl.
And it starts small, and it gets, who knows?
I never thought of that.
A double entendre, if you will.
Yes. Wow. No, that's both logical and poetic.
Thank you.
No, I never thought of that. That yeah, a line is like the beginning of an art piece. Unintentionally, I think the studio itself has become like its own sort of living art piece, like its own character. And
it's always in transition, which I think is kind of cool to see it in all of its phases. When a show comes down and the walls are blank, like it's striking, it looks weird, it looks wrong, and then the next show comes up and it's a different feeling and it's a different design, but every time it's something exciting. And I think a lot of people are able to see themselves in the art that we display, and I think that just brings us all more closer.
So now, what is it that you see for the future? I know there's a lot of things coming for La Linea.
There's a lot of things coming. This is the first part, well, this last year where we've been booked to the future. In the beginning, right, we didn't have a fully structured calendar, and we were figuring out as it went along. But we have a crazy calendar of events coming up. We're off for August, but in September, it'll be really exciting.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And I think all of downtown is evolving, including La Linea and the Whitner and different organizations. And I think it'll be exciting to see. I don't think it'll stop. I think that's what I really, there is not like a finished point. I don't think at one day we'll be like, oh, we did it. I think it'll be a constant evolution. But as long as it's evolving and it's not stagnant and it's not dying, I think it's a beautiful thing.
And what's in the future for Aissa Huerta?
I don't know.
I don't know what's happening today. Well, more specific.
Let me get through the interview.
More specifically, you as an artist, what is it that you think you'll do next? Because again, a lot of people don't know, but you have been involved in almost every mural that's gone up downtown.
Not Tony's murals.
Not Tony's murals. But you have had a say in all of those, or like you've been involved somehow. You're painting a mural right now.
I am at the Anza Park. What was the question? What's next for me?
Yeah, as an artist.
As an artist, I don't know actually, but I think it is very exciting. It's at this point where I've tried to come at art from a lot of angles, from like technical art, from historical art, from cultural, to administration, to teaching. And it's been a really cool kind of survey of the human experience and understanding how all of these different things contribute and blend and stretch back and resonate. I think the next chapter is really starting to put all of these little pieces together. And I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm excited.
It's amazing. Will we ever get to see the Aissa Huerta exhibit at La Linea?
One day. It's for me, I really wanted to create a community space, and that doesn't necessarily entail like putting my name all over the walls at my first opportunity. But at some point, I think I will feel enough of an artist to have a show there.
That's so interesting that you know that it's you've done so many things and you've learned so much about everything, and you've incorporated all of these aspects of the human experience into your art, and yet, you know, like right now you're like, will I ever feel like an artist?
And that's, you know, that's that first conversation I had with you. I don't know, I mean, I'm sure some people wake up in the morning and they're like, this is who I am, this is what I do. But I think most
Well, there's
artists...
also people that like, you know, paint like a round yellow bulb thing and it's like, $1,000, I'm an artist.
I mean, some of those things are, a lot of the color blocking art, I'm just gonna say it, a lot of the color blocking art gets a bad rap because like I could paint a yellow circle or I could paint...
But you know what, I recently saw like the argument against it, and that it's that, you know, like this type of contemporary modern art, it's people are like, oh, I could have done that. But you didn't. But you didn't, yeah.
You didn't, and it does change the way you perceive the world. So if you look at a blue canvas and you stare at its intricacies for a few minutes and you turn around and look away, there's a filter on your eyes now that was not there before. So there's nuances to art, and I think there's a lot of layers, and I think it's really vulnerable in that I'm pretty sure art is one of the few things that anybody can walk up to and judge, like confidently.
Right.
Like I wouldn't step into an OR and be like, that's wrong. You know, I don't know.
Right.
But art is one of those things that people resonate with and they feel close enough to that they have personal feelings about it, and they're excited to share those usually.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it just comes to show how you've the type of knowledge that you bring to how we view art. It's just another example of how you're a pillar in this art movement. You did it.
Shut up.
You did it. You're an artist.
Oh, thank you. You're an artist too. And honestly, like watching you grow from the person that didn't want to admit to being an artist to the person doing talk shows about the art, like, it's been phenomenal, and it's been a great experience, and I hope that a lot of people get to have that experience of just allowing themselves to do what they want with passion.
It really is all about being yourself. Because if you do what you love, then I now get it. Where like, if you do what you love, you won't work a day in your life. And
you do, but coming home and having worked into something that you love doesn't feel as draining as the alternative.
And before we start crying, I think we should leave it on that note. Thank you so much, Aissa, for sitting down and talking and letting us know who you are and where you got your doctorate. And again, art lovers, this has been a segment of getting to know your local art heroes. If you want to know everything that's going on in the Morley Arts District, there will be a QR code that you can scan so you can subscribe to our newsletter. They can visit somoslalínea.com. Somoslalínea.art. And then Somos La Linea on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, definitely follow Somos La Linea on Instagram. Like, that's how you'll know when things are coming up. And thank you again. Thank you, and thank you, Edgardo, for being the silent hero behind us all. Well, this has been another segment of Meet Our Local Art Heroes, and I'm Juan Miguel Garcia. Thank you so much.